Erev Tov, everyone. Welcome to the House of Seven Beggars. It is Wednesday night. Yeah, that's it. It's Wednesday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This is the House of Seven Beggars. Therefore, it must be the Torah study in depth with yours truly. Good to have you all here this evening on this Yom Zikaron. See who we have in the chat room. We have Marshall, we have David, we have Donald, we have Kelsey Lynn, and okay, so as you know, we are continuing our in-depth study of the Torah. We are in the Sefer with a Rashi's commentary. I should add that. We are in the Sefer Shemot, and right now we are in to Parsha Yitro, one of my favorite parashot. We left off last week at verse 20, chapter 19, verse 20, and that's where we'll pick up tonight. Just checking the chat room, see what's going on in there, see if any questions or anything pop up. Okay, so of course, we're going to study the Torah, so we begin with the blessing for the study of Torah. Barak Adonai Elohim Malach Haolam Asher Kiddushanu B'mitzvotav v'tzivav l'sot b'divrei Torah. Okay, so verse 20. Remember, we were talking about this is Parsha Yitro. Now, Yitro has come and he has come and advise Moshe Rabbeinu to set up a court system, kind of similar to what we're used to today, and a hierarchy of courts. And we are now to the point where we're coming to the giving of the Ten Commandments. So we pick up again, chapter 19, verse 20. Hashem descended upon Har Sinai to the top of the mountain. Hashem summoned the Moshe to the top of the mountain, and Moshe ascended. Rashi goes on to say, Hashem ascended upon Har Sinai, Mount Sinai. One might think, on the basis of this verse, he actually descended on it. To teach us otherwise, the Torah says, "For from the heavens I spoke to you." Yet how can the Torah tell us in one verse that he descended onto the mountain and then tell us in another that he was in the heavens? It teaches us that he bent the upper and lower heavens and spread them over the mountain like a sheet on a bed. And the throne of God of glory descended upon them. Thus, by bending the heavens, God was both in the heavens and on Har Sinai simultaneously. Reminds me of something from Doom. The Holtzman engine, they called it, which was able to fold space. Marilyn's joined us. The heavy Marilyn. Okay. Further commentary on this. Let's see if there is any further commentary on this. Yes, there is. Okay. Let's see. Actually, no. Just a couple of references to a couple other places in Torah. Okay, verse 21. Hashem said to Moshe, descend warn the people lest they will destroy to Hashem to see, and many would fall from among them. Okay, let's see what Rashi has to say about this. Warn the people. This means warn them not to go up to the mountain, lest they will destroy. Which is an odd way of actually saying that. This means warn them that they should not destroy their present position, i.e., that they should not break ranks. Okay, that clarifies it a little bit. And because of their desire to come close to Hashem, to be able to see his revelation, they might come too close to the side of the mountain. And many would fall from among them. Whatever number may fall from among them, even if it is an individual, is considered many before me, because Hashem counts all the generations that would follow. Lest they will destroy. Back to that again. Any destruction separates the collection of the unity from the parts of a structure. So to those who separate from among an arranged position of men, i.e., they break ranks of an original assemblage, destroy the position. I'm sure all those you who are in the military understand what they're saying here very well. Okay, so let's go back here. The verb, hey, dalit, I should actually tell you where that actually is. Yeah, warn them not to go up to the mountain. Okay. Ha'id ba'am. The word hey ayin dalit usually means testify. It is secondary meaning warning, because warning usually takes place in the presence of witnesses. Makes sense. Okay. As it goes and they should not break ranks, for the commentary says the verb he resh samek is a transitive verb. Okay, here we go into language and sentence structure and stuff like that. That is a transitive verb, but the verse does not provide a direct object for it. Rashi says that the implied object is their position. Okay, I'll go along with that. As it regards, is considered many, even if an individual, it is considered many before me. From Mechilta, the verses shift from the plural verb hirsu to the singular benafev. Here we go. Okay, let's see. Benafal. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Indicates that the verse is focusing on the individual. Okay. As it regards to breaking ranks and they destroy the position, further commentary says the verb, although the verb hey resh samek usually denotes destroying an inanimate structure, it can apply to the destruction of any assembly. Okay. Verse 21. Hashem said to Moshe, descend, warn the people lest they will. Oh, sorry, that's 22. Yeah. Also, the Kohanim who come close unto Hashem should prepare themselves lest Hashem will make a breach against them. Rashi goes on to say here that, and also the Kohanim, that is also the firstborn for the sacrificial service is to be performed by them, who come close to Hashem, to bring altar offerings. They too should not rely upon their importance to ascend the mountain, should prepare themselves. They should be ready to stand at their position. lest Hashem will make a breach. This is an expression of a breach. It means that he will kill among them and thereby make a breach in them. And again, a breach in the ranks. Okay. Further commentary. To bring an offering regarding the Kohanim. Come close does not refer to the position of the Kohanim on Har Sinai at the time of the giving of the Torah. And regarding to they should be ready to stand at their position, the further commentary says, and more common meaning of the word is they will sanctify themselves. Okay. Maybe among them. Okay, so we're on to verse 23 now. And Richard has joined us. Good to see you, Richard. Uh, 24. Oh, 23. 23. Moshe said, why am I having such a hard time keeping my place tonight? It's been one of those days, folks. Just been one of those days. What can I say? Okay. Moshe said to Hashem, the people will not be able to ascend Har Sinai, for you have warned us, saying, bound the mountain and sanctify it. Rashi goes on to say that the people will not be able. I do not need to warn them, for today they are to stand, they are in a state of having been warned for a 3-day period, and they will not be able to go up, for they have no permission to do so. Okay, Rashi's, or the further commentary on this one says that Rashi interpreted lo yicholem lo yachol, he will not be able to, as he has no permission, as a commentary to Deuteronomy 12:17, Joshua 17:36, and Kings, 1 Kings 5:17. Okay. Verse 24. Got it right this time. Verse 24. Hashem said to him, go ascend, then you shall ascend, you and Aharon with you, but the Kohanim and the people, they shall not destroy to ascend to Hashem, lest he will make a breach against them. And again, we find probably a more accurate translation of the text than we're used to hearing. Because if we go to some of the other, the Tikkun, Tanakh, and so on and so forth, the interpretation is a little bit different. It's different to make sense to us. As we're reading it, you notice that when I was reading it, I had to stop and go, well, what does this actually mean? I mean, is it a misprint, or is there something, what is Rashi going to have to say about this? Because the wording is such that it's a little bit confusing. Now, as they make the translations and we read in the Chumash and so on and so forth, they actually put it into a context that's a little easier to understand when you're going through and reading straight through. However, as we're going through this and we're reading some very difficult text in here, so that we can find out exactly what is it that Rashi has to say about this. Because there, even something that is not quite clear to us has value. Okay, so you've heard my goings on. Okay, so Rashi says, back to verse 24, go descend and warn them a second time. For we spur on a person to follow instructions by warning him prior to the act, and spur him on against at the time of the act. Kohanim. One might think, on the basis of the verse, that Aharon and the Kohanim, who are also with you, at the same level of the mountain. To teach us otherwise, the Torah says, then you shall ascend. You say now that God is telling Moshe, you, Moshe, are to be in an area to yourself. And Aharon is to be within an area to himself. And the Kohanim are to be within an area unto themselves. Moshe came closer to the divine presence than Aharon, and Aharon closer than the Kohanim. But the people shall not destroy their position at all to ascend to Hashem. And then it goes on, lest he will make a breach. Even though the word Yifrat is vowelized with Chataf, Kamatz, unlike the previous appearance of the word in verse 22, which is vowelized with a Cholam, it does not move from its construct. I'm so glad to find that out. I was so worried about it. What can I say? It is vowelized differently because such is the way of any word which is vowelized with a milapum. When it appears with a makaf, the hyphen between Yifrat and Bam, which indicates a close connection between words. The vowelization is changed from the cholam to the chataf kamatz. Yeah, okay. So let's see if there's the further commentary on this. With regard to, gotta be here somewhere. There it is. God is telling Moshe, you, Moshe, are to be in an area by yourself. The further commentary on this says that the unnecessary pronoun ata, you, implies that Moshe alone is to ascend to the highest point. And Aharon to be within an area to himself. The further commentary says Aharon is described as being with you. In some sense, he is closer to Moshe than the others. And with regard to, and the Kohanim are to be in an area to themselves. The further commentary says, and the verse distinguishes them from the rest of the people. B'nei Yisrael. Okay. A little bit more about sentence structure here. A lot more about sentence structure here. Okay. So we'll just skip the grammar here. I hope you don't mind. We'll go on to the last verse of chapter 19. Verse 25, Moshe descended to the people and said to them. Boom. End of the chapter. Okay. He said to them, this warning. Further commentary on that says that Vayomer, he said, is a transitive verb. Its direct object, which does not appear in the verse, is the warning against ascending the mountain, which was mentioned above. Okay. Chapter 20 and verse 1. God spoke all these words to say, Rashi goes on to say, which is interesting because I mean we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 words in Hebrew, 5 words in this line, and Rashi has a tremendous amount to say about these 5 words. So let's see what Rashi's got to say here. And God spoke. The divine name Elohim used here means judge exclusively. Why is the term implying judgment used to introduce the section of the Torah? Similarly, it is said, "You shall not curse," and Targum Onkelos renders it judge. Curse, judge. Okay, because there are passages in the Torah that contain commandments for which one receives a reward if he performs them, but if he does not receive punishment because of them. One might think that the 10 Commandments are also like this. To teach otherwise, the Torah says, and God spoke, using the name Elohim, which is to indicate that he is a judge to exact punishment for failure to keep the 10 Commandments. All these words, this teaches us that the Holy One, blessed is he, said all the 10 Commandments in one utterance. Actually, there are rabbis that actually said that all the mitzvot, all 613 mitzvot, as we count them, because we use Maimonides' count, that all 613 were uttered at one moment. Here it says the 10 Commandments. Maimonides actually talks about this in quite a bit of detail, because he says that even though only 10 were listed in the Torah in this parsha here, that every one of the 613 mitzvot can be connected to one of the 10. Therefore, by hearing the 10, you've heard all 613. So there you go. Okay. So they said all the 10 commands in one utterance. Can you imagine that? Hearing all of that, just boom, like that. I mean, our minds, it would be like 1,000 choruses shouting in your face at the same moment. I mean, it would be like, to the human ear and to the mind, it would be absolutely incomprehensible. At some later time, you may be able to kind of filter it out and figure out what was going on, but at the moment, you can understand why the Bnei Israel said, wait a minute. Don't have God speak to us anymore, or we'll die. In other words, we'll just flat go out of our minds, because our minds are not able to comprehend this. Okay, so teaches the Holy One said the commandments in one utterance, something which is impossible for man to say in a like manner. If so, why does the Torah go on to say, I am Adonai, I am Hashem, your God, and there shall not be unto you gods of others? Because he went back and specified each and every statement of the 10 Commandments individually. To say, this teaches us that the Israelites would answer yes to that which was positive and no to that which was negative. Makes sense. Okay. Okay, Marilyn says, of the 613, which are thou shalt and which are thou shalt not? You would ask me that, wouldn't you? I don't remember right offhand what the count is. But I will find out. I will find out. Okay. Uh, Maybe during the break I'll look that up. Unless somebody in the chat room wants to quickly look that up. It seems like it is 267 positive, I think. Okay. Well, anyway. So let's get back to what Rashi has to say. Torah, and we go down here. Okay, let's go way back here. Okay, so using the divine name meaning judge exclusively, the additional commentary here says Rashi does not comment upon the intimations of judgment every time Elohim is used in the Torah. It is in combination of the appearance of this name with the verb dalet vet reish, which connotates speech with a tone of authority or harshness, as opposed to the verb Aleph mem reish, which gives rise to his commandments. And okay, so I'm not the only one that doesn't remember. Okay. Yeah, if somebody could Google that real quick, just so we can get Marilyn an answer to her question. Okay, with regards to I am Hashem your God, and there shall be no other gods for you. Rashi goes on to say, Rashi's question is perplexing. The Torah obviously must enumerate the commandments, for otherwise we would not know what they are. Tosafot Hashalem understands Rashi's question as follows. If it is true that God said all commandments at once, why are they divided into separate verses? They should all have been included in a single verse. Alternatively, alternative explanations of Rashi's question can be found in Mizrahi Devrei David and other commentators. So there you go. Okay. Moving on. Oh, the 10 Commandments individually. The additional commentary says, Mechilta, all of the commandments are not put into the same verse because God repeated them individually after he uttered them simultaneously. Okay. Simon is here. Good to have you, Simon. Always good. Okay, let's see. Any more commentary on this? Okay. Let me see here. You would think it would be in the additional commentary. Okay, let's go on to verse 2. I am Hashem your God, who took you out of the land of Mitzrayim from the house of slaves. Rashi goes on to say here, who took you out of the land of Mitzrayim. Taking you out of Mitzrayim is sufficient reason for you to be subject to me. Alternatively, God identifies himself through the Exodus because he revealed himself at the parting of the sea as a mighty warrior. And he revealed himself here as an old man full of mercy. And it says, and beneath his feet there was that had the form of the brick of sapphire. This brick was before him at the time of the enslavement as a sign of God's suffering along with the Israelites in their bondage. and something like the image of the heavens was before him once they were redeemed. Since I change appearances, I do not err and say that there are two divine powers, although I have appeared differently to you since then. I am the one who took you out of Mitzrayim, and I am the one who you saw on the sea. Alternatively, God himself identifies himself through the Exodus because the Israelites heard many sounds at the time of the revelation at Har Sinai. It's, as it says, the sounds, plural. Sound coming from four directions, and from the heaven and from the earth. Therefore, do not err and say that there are many divine powers. Why did he say the commandments in the second person singular, such as your singular God, rather than saying in the second person plural? So as to provide you an opening for Moshe to offer a defense for the Israelites regarding the incident of the golden calf. And that is why Moshe said in their defense, "Why, Hashem, does your anger burn against your people? You did not give the commandment, there shall be no other gods for you to them, but rather to me alone." From the house of slaves. This means from the house of Paro, to whom you were slaves. Or is the verse rather saying from the house belonging to slaves, implying that the Israelites were slaves to slaves rather than slaves to Paro? To clarify this, the Torah says, "And he redeemed you from the house of slaves, from the hand of Paro, the king of Mitzrayim." You must now say, on the basis of the verse, that they were slaves of the king and not slaves of slaves. Okay, a lot of commentary there. For 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 words. 9 words in Hebrew. And Rashi has gone on to a page and a half with this. Okay. But again, that's the way we learn. That's why it's in there. It forces us to study. It forces us to question and to look. That's one of the great things about Judaism is that there's always a question, and the answer is never closed because there's always something there that we can say, yeah, but which keeps the conversation going. So we're constantly learning. Hence why we read the Torah over and over and over again every single year, because every single year we learn a little bit more. They say that a man can only see to his level, and beyond that he cannot see. So as we go and we learn more each year, the next time we go through, we're at a different level and we see a little bit more. Okay, so now that I've gone through that whole dissertation, let's go back to the further commentary here. Taking you out of Mitzrayim was sufficient reason for you to be subject to me. Thus God identified himself as the one who took the Israelites out of Egypt rather than the one who created heaven and earth. With the old man. Let's see. As a mighty warrior, himself as as an old man full of mercy. For the commentary, he is compared to a compassionate elderly person whose emotional state shifts with the fortunes of Israel. Okay. So the sea and therefore do not err and say that there are many powers. For the commentary says here from Shemot Rabbah 5:9. The verse is saying that all of the various sounds heard at the revelation emanated from the one God who revealed himself to them when he took them out of Mitzrayim. Okay. The house of slaves, yeah. The house of slaves is ambiguous. This could mean the house belonging to slaves or the place where the slaves are housed. Okay, which we've already talked about that. Okay. Yeah, that goes to verse 3. Okay, we're on to verse 3 now. There shall not be unto you the God of others before me. And that's the end of the verse. And Rashi goes on to say, there shall not be unto you. Why was it said, lo? Because it is said in the following verse, you shall not make for yourselves a graven image. From which I can only conclude, Rashi's saying here, that one should not make an idol. What is the source for the saying that one should not keep an idol that has already been made? The Torah says, there shall not be unto you, i.e., not only is it forbidden to make an idol, but you must not keep one either. Gods of others, this means they are not divine, but others made them gods over them. It is impossible to explain the term as other gods, that is, gods other than myself, for it is an affront towards him who is above all to call them gods alongside him. An alternative explanation of other gods is that they are other, i.e., strangers to those who worship them. Their worshippers cry out to them, but they do not answer them. It is as if the God were an other who never knew the worshiper. Okay, and we say this, all the time. They have eyes, but they don't see. They have mouths, but they don't speak, and so on and so forth. Okay, may those who worship them become like them. Okay. Really, no other further commentary on this. Just basically, there are many commandments forbidding idolatry. What is the unique lesson of this particular one? That was the further commentary. An open question with no answer. Okay. Thank you, Be'er Yitzhak, for that one. Okay. Okay, before me, regarding the... Okay. Before me, this apparently superfluous phrase means all the while that I exist, that you should not say none were commanded regarding idolatry except the generation present at Harsaneh. And then the further commentary just refers over to Mechilta. Okay. Verse 4, which I think is just one word on the other page. Verse 4, you shall not make for yourselves a graven image or any picture of that which is in the heavens or on the earth below or in the water beneath the earth. Rashi goes on to say, a carved image called a pesel because it is sculpted. Or pesel. Okay. Pesel. Makes sense. Mortar and pestle? Yeah, okay. So now we know where that word comes from. Ah, okay. Because it is sculpted. Or any picture. A picture of anything that is in the heaven. Okay. So all those little Reuben paintings with the cherubs, the little angels with the wings and stuff like that. Forbidden. Forbidden. Okay. Not a lot of commentary there. Okay. Additional commentary on this because it is sculpted. I'm referring to a pestle because it is sculpted. This is not a general term meaning idol. It specifically means an idol which is sculpted as opposed to more general term likeness. Okay. With regard to a picture of anything that is in the heavens, further commentary says, the verse reads, or any picture that is in the heavens above. I understood literally the word that refers back to any picture. The clause that is in the heavens above would refer to the location of the picture. However, it does not. It refers to the subject of the picture, which I think we all kind of figured that out. Okay, so we are at our halfway point, so we're going to pause here. And when we return, we'll pick up with the next of the Decalogue. So stay tuned, and we will be back in 6.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. show starts in 3 minutes. The show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
And we are back. Okay, to answer your question, according to Maimonides' count, there are 248 positive mitzvot and 365 negative. So I kind of had the numbers kind of goofed around there a little bit. So there you go. 248 positive and 365 negative. Okay. So, and again, according to Maimonides' count, there are other rabbis who have counted it, and the number kind of varies because some say, well, this mitzvot is actually, these two mitzvot are actually one mitzvot, and so on and so forth. But we pretty much go with the way Maimonides has actually defined the mitzvot. Okay, which makes sense. Okay, so we left off, you're on verse 5. You shall not prostrate yourselves to them, nor worship them, for I am Hashem your God, a zealous God, who visits the sin of fathers upon the children, upon the third and upon the fourth generations, for those who hate me. Okay, Rashi goes on to say, oh, Marilyn, you're going to love this. There's old French in here. Rashi says, a zealous God, he is zealous to exact punishment and does not bypass his attribute of strict judgment to forgive this sin of idolatry. All expressions of the Aleph are Imprement in Old French. He concentrates on being paid his due. Okay, for those who hate me. This is to be understood as it is rendered by Targum Onkelos. He remembers the sins of the fathers against the children when they hold the deed of the fathers in their hands, i.e., they maintain their father's sinful behavior. And I've talked about this a lot before because a lot of people have the wrong concept of this. So let me go ahead and get through this, and then I'll come back to it. Okay. They mean to. He guards kindness that a person does to pay a reward to the descendant of the one who did the kindness until 2,000 generations. It thus turns out that God's aspect of doing good for people is greater than the aspect of punishment by a ratio of 1 to 500. For this one persists for 4 generations, and this one for 2,000 generations. The bad for 4 generations, the good for 2,000 generations. Okay, let me get back to this whole concept, because the Torah says, who visits the sin of fathers upon the children, upon the 3rd and the 4th generations. Okay, and we know that one man cannot pay for the sins of another person. So Rashi and Onkelos are absolutely right when it talks about he remembers the sins against the children. When they maintain the father's sinful behavior, because the children learn from the parents. Okay, if the father is doing something, the children will tend to follow along the example, and then to the next generation, and so on. We find this many, many times, especially these days for some reason. We see this many, many times where the parents have strayed away from Judaism and have become maybe secular or gone in other directions, and we typically find that after about the 3rd generation, we see those descendants returning to Judaism, and they typically return with a vengeance. And what I mean by that is they return and they become very observant. So that's what I got to say about that. I mean, we seem to be seeing this more and more, but Baruch Hashem, we are seeing this more and more. Okay, and we probably will see even more of it as time goes on. Okay. Okay. Again, he remembers the sin. This is the additional commentary. He remembers the sin of the fathers against rebellious children, for those who hate me, when the sons continue to sin after their fathers. Okay. Yeah, I think I skipped ahead a little bit here. Okay, so oddly enough, no commentary on 6. It's actually all combined into 5. Rashi here uses the term, let's say, hesed, guards kindness, found in 34:7, rather than the term oseh chesed, does kindness, which appears in the next verse. Many editions of Rashi have this as a heading. Rashi's choice of a heading from another verse rather than corresponding to the phrase in the next verse has perplexed the commentators. Various solutions have been suggested, all of which involve some sort of textual indemnation. We have chosen the version of the text considered most accurate by Yosef Da'at, which has Venotzer Chesed with the letter Vav as a prefix. This is also the text of the first printed edition of Rashi. It indicates that the term is not a heading, but rather a continuation of Rashi's comment on our verse, which deals with the subject of God taking the actions of the fathers into account in the treatment of the children. If this is so, Rashi patterned his language here on that of the verse from the other chapter, and then it refers to Yosef Hillel. Okay. Verse 6 goes on to say that, but who does kindness for thousands of generations for those who love me and observe my commandments? I'm actually surprised they didn't split this. I understand that they're connected to each other, but do you think Rashi would have split off that little commentary for verse 6? But he didn't. He had his reasons, so we'll go with it. Okay. Okay. Verse 7, excuse me. You shall not take the name of Hashem your God in vain, for Hashem will not absolve anyone who takes his name in vain. Okay, Rashi goes to say in vain. This means for no reason, for foolishness. What is an oath in vain? If he swears and thereby changes that which which is known to be true, for instance, if he swears that a pillar of stone is of gold. Interesting. Okay. For the commentary on this, the pillar of stone, Shavuot, folio 29a. This comment appears in many different forms in the various editions of Rashi. The text here follows that cited by Mizrahi, which coincides with that of the first printed edition. And again, we've talked about the Al-Kabetz edition and so on and so forth. Okay, verse 8. Remember the Sabbath day to sanctify it. Period. And again, we have longer verses, which Rashi doesn't spend a lot of commentary on, and then we have these very, very short verses, which Rashi goes into great deal on. Zachor, remember the day of Sabbath, and guard the day of Sabbath. Were said by God simultaneously in one statement. So to another pair of verses which were said simultaneously is, those who desecrate Shabbat shall be put to death, and on the day of Shabbat 2 lambs. So too, you shall not wear nets, a garment made of a combination of wool and linen. And you shall make for yourselves tzitzits, fringes on the corners and the four-cornered garment. So too you shall not uncover the nakedness of your brother's wife, and her Yavam, the brother-in-law who performs the Levirate marriage, shall have relations with her. This phenomenon of God saying 2 verses simultaneously is spoken of in the verse. God said 1, 2 is what I heard. Okay, remember, this word, this is of the pa'ol form, such as eating and drinking and going and crying. Such is the interpretation in our verse. Pay attention to always remember the day of Sabbath, so that if you will come upon an attractive object, prepare. So if you will come upon an attractive object, prepare it for the Sabbath. Okay. Okay, let's see. Really, the only a lot of references to other places in the Torah, but we get to God said 1, 2 is what I heard. The further commentary on this says from Tehillah, Psalm 62, verse 12. In each pair of verses cited by Rashi, one verse seems to conflict with the other. Those who desecrate Sabbath shall be put to death. Includes prohibitions against slaughtering, kindling fire, and so on. The verse, on the day of Sabbath, 2 lambs shall be offered, teaches that these offerings must be made even though they entail tasks otherwise forbidden. Do not wear sha'anetz. Appears to prohibit wearing any garment made of a combination of wool and linen. The verse, you shall make for yourselves tzitzits, teaches that it is permitted to wear a linen garment with woolen tzitzits. Likewise, her yavnam will have relations with her is an exception to the rule. You shall not uncover the nakedness of the wife of your brother. Remember and guard present a problem of a different nature. Remember applies to a positive law of Shabbat, sanctifying Shabbat verbally. Guard applies to the passive negative law, the prohibition against doing work. You can perform the one without violating the other. But in recounting the 10 Commandments, Moshe uses guard rather than remember. How could he have substituted one for the other when they are different in nature? Thus, the sages say that Moshe made no substitution. Both words were said simultaneously by God. So there you have it. Okay. And again, a little more about grammar and stuff like that. Excuse me. Okay, we move on. Verse 9. 6 days shall you work and do all your work. Rashi goes on to say, and you will do all your work. When Shabbat comes, it should seem as if all your work is done, so that you should not reflect upon forbidden work and worry about, oh, I wanted to get this done, I wanted to get that done. No. When Shabbat comes, I've done everything. I've got nothing left to do. So I can just sit back and I can enjoy the Sabbath. Okay. The additional commentary on here says from Mechilta, the Mechilta points out that this is not a commandment to complete all one's work within the 6 working days' work. So it's not, you don't have to complete all your work. It's just that at the end of the 6th day, you're supposed to have considered it as being done. Okay. Otherwise, we would drive ourselves crazy on Friday. Absolutely no doubt about it. Verse 10. But the 7th day is Shabbat. Is Shabbat to Hashem, your God. You shall not do any work, you and your son and your daughter, your slave and your maidservant, and your animal, and your convert within your gates. Rashi goes on, you and your son and your daughter. These sons and daughters are minors. Or perhaps it refers to adult sons and daughters. You can say, by way of refutation, they are already enjoined with regard to observing Sabbath in their own right. Rather, the verse comes only to enjoin adults to see that minors abstain from work. This is reflected in what we have learned. If a minor comes to extinguish a fire on Shabbat, we do not listen to him, i.e., we do not permit him to do so. For his abstaining from work is your responsibility. Okay. Okay, with regards to the adults, so that the parents need not be commanded to see to it that they observe the Sabbath, because they're responsible for observing the Sabbath on their own once they turn 13. Okay, becomes their responsibility. They are responsible on their own. Verse 11. For in 6 days Hashem made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and he rested on the seventh day. Therefore, Hashem blessed the Sabbath day and sanctified it. Rashi goes on to say, and he rested on the seventh day. He had rest written about himself as if it were possible for God to tire. We learn a kal vachomer from him. For man whose labor is done through toil and exertion, that he should rest on Shabbat. Hashem blessed the Sabbath and sanctified it. He blessed it with respect to the manna, to give double its usual amount on the sixth day, double bread, and thus provide for Shabbat. And he sanctified it with respect to manna, for it did not descend on Shabbat, as we have already read. Okay. This kal vachomer, literally easy and hard, that's what the word actually means, is an for a Torah logical argument which states that if a rule has been made for a given situation where there is relatively little reason for it to apply, all the more so should it apply to a situation where there is more reason to apply it, even though the rule has not been explicitly given in the second case. I've also heard the opposite with Talmudic argument, where they say, which we will be getting back into, Rabbi Ansel and myself have already talked about doing maybe a short series on the Talmud and what it's all about and structure and so on and so forth. But yeah, there's there's a concept in the Talmud that if you have a law and you're applying it in one case, if you take it to its extreme, and I'm waving over here, which you can't see, so let me do this. And if it if it applies over here, then you have the right determination, because if it applies in the extreme case, then it applies in the simple case, which is just the opposite of the kal vachomer idea. Okay, so okay, with this idea that he should rest on the Sabbath day, that God rested and he should rest on the seventh day. From the Mechilta, if God, who does not tire as he works, rests on Shabbat, all the more so should a man who exerts himself with labor rest on the Sabbath. Again, going right back to this kal vachomer. Okay. Verse 12. Honor your father and your mother, so that your days will be lengthened upon the land that Hashem, your God, gives you. Rashi goes on to say, so that your days will be lengthened. If you will honor your father and mother, your days shall be lengthened. But if not, they shall be shortened. The implication can be derived from the words of the verse. For the words of the Torah are to be expounded as an abbreviated form of speech. For the implication of the positive, the negative can be derived. And from the implication of the negative, the positive can be derived. Okay. And no real additional commentary on that except to a comments back to Mechilta again. For 13, you shall not kill. And actually, that is not the correct term. The correct term is murder. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your fellow. Rashi goes on, you shall not commit adultery. The term Nuuf applies to only to illicit relations with a married woman. And it says, a man, etc., who will commit adultery with the wife of his neighbor, the adulterer and the adulteress shall be put to death. And as it says, the adulterous woman will take strangers while married to her husband. Shall not steal. Which is interesting that Rashi skips over this whole concept of murder. Shall not steal. The verse speaks of one who kidnaps people. But the verse, you shall not steal, speaks of one who steals money. Or is it rather that this verse is about one who steals money and the verse below is about one who kidnaps? You can say, by way of clarification, that a matter is learned from its context. Just as each of the verses, you shall not murder, correctly said, you shall not commit adultery, discusses a matter for which people are liable to the court-imposed death penalty. So too, you shall not steal, which is juxtaposed to those verses in a matter for which people are liable for a court-imposed death penalty. Okay, so yes, actually in Rashi's commentary, it's actually translated correctly as murder. Because we know that there is a big difference between murder and killing. Sometimes killing is actually justified. Murder is actually not ever justified. Okay. That's what happens when you talk a long time. Just keep running off at the mouth, going on and on and on until you fall over backwards. Okay. The verse must be therefore be speaking of kidnapping, which is a capital sin, and not theft, which is punishable by monetary assessment. Okay. Okay. We're on to verse 15. And all the people could see the sound and the flames and the sound of the shofar and the smoking mountain. And the people saw and they moved and they stood from afar. Rashi goes on to say, and all the people could see. The apparently superfluous all teaches us that there was not a single blind person among them. And from where do we know that there was not a mute among them? To teach us this, the Torah says, and the people answered. And from this we do we know that there was not a deaf person among them. To teach us that this, the Torah says, we will do and we will listen. Could see the sounds. Sounds like the 60s, doesn't it? You could see the sounds. They were seeing that which is audible, which is impossible to see elsewhere. The sounds that emerged from the mouth of the Almighty, and they moved. Movement in the context of meaning only trembling. And they stood afar. They drew back 12 mills. That's actually quite a distance, 12 mills. The length of their camp. And a ministering angel would come and assist them to return to them, to return them. So, come on, let's go. Okay, and as it says, the King of Legions moved about. Okay, further commentary. Let's see what we got for the commentary. Okay, with regards to there was not a blind person among them. We have been told above, Rashi in 1911, that prior to the giving of the Torah, all those who were blind were healed. The verse repeats this here to inform us that viewing the revelation of the Shekinah at the giving of the Ten Commandments did not adversely affect the eyesight of the Israelites through all. Although the Talmud Yerushalayim says that viewing a far less intense revelation and a blessing of the Kohanim does. Okay. Interesting. With regard to we will do and we will listen, which comes in verse 24:7. This is an elaboration of the event in the verse quoted above. And all the people answered, as the word all of that verse implies that literally all the people answered, so too it implies by extension that all of them said, we will, and we will listen. Okay. So, okay. Verse 7. No commentary on 16. Okay. Again, they've combined this with 15. They said to Moshe, you speak to us and we shall hear. Let God not speak to us lest we die. And again, based on my, what I was talking about earlier, you can imagine, that this had to be absolutely overwhelming to these people. So much so that they moved back from at 12 mil. Which is a significant distance. So much so that the ministering angel had to come on, it's okay, let's come on. Okay, so verse 17. Moshe said to the people, do not fear, for in order to exalt you has God come, so that his fear shall be before you, so that you shall not sin. And you would have thought that would have been enough, but here we are. Okay, so Rashi says, in order to exalt you, this means to promote you throughout the world, so that your reputation will go out among the nations, in that he and his glory revealed himself to you. To exalt, this word is an expression of elevation and greatness, like the word nes, in the phrase raise a banner, and nisi in the phrase I will raise my banner, and in kanes in the verse like a banner on a hill. The quality of the banner which associates it to promoting it is that it is stood upright, as illustrated by the above verses. Okay. Additional commentary. I'm trying to keep out of this real deep grammatical stuff for you. Um, uh, Here we go. Oh yeah, we weren't done yet. Okay. Raise a banner. Okay. And so that fear shall be through your having seen him when he shows himself as fearsome and awesome, you will know that there is none other than he. You will have fear before him. Okay. With regard to the banner that is stood upright, is illustrated in the above verse. Other commentators understood nisot as to test, to habituate, and to admonish. Okay. And you will have fear before him. The further commentary says Moshe began the verse by telling the Israelites, do not fear. The rest of the verse explains why they should not fear. If so, how can Moshe give that so that his fear should be before you as part of the reason for not fearing? Good question. When Moshe said, do not fear, he was trying to dispel Israel's fear of imminent death. He tells them that the purpose of God's revelation is to instill in them another sort of fear, fear of his majesty, which will serve to keep them from sinning throughout their lives. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think we'll wait till next week to get into 18. Because I do want to dwell on that a little bit. Let me put my bookmark here. Okay. So I don't lose my place. Okay. Barakat Adonai Elohim melech haolam asher natan לנו Torah ואמת בחיי ולעולם נשא בדוכנו ברכת Adonai נותן התורה. Okay, so I hope you will be with us next week. Don't forget, Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern is Kabbalat and Mariv, Shabbat service, and then 10 a.m. on Shabbat morning Eastern is Shachrit and Musaf. Tazria Metzora, double parsha this week, as it usually is. And Monday with the old rabbis discuss, and should be very interesting. We are going to thank you, Marilyn, for giving us the suggestion. And if anybody else has suggestions, please let us know. She wanted to know about the book of Enoch. And that's what we are going to be discussing on Monday. It's interesting, very interesting. The book of Enoch is actually 3 books of Enoch. Okay, and we will get into that more on Monday. So, and then right back here on Wednesday, where we will pick up with Rashi in Shemot. Until then, we are going to simply say, Laila Tov.